The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of the staff and management of WBBZ-TV. It's time for Political Buzz, the television forum to discuss politics and issues of interest for all of Western New York. Now, from the WBBZ television studio at the Eastern Hills Mall, this is Political Buzz.
Hello and welcome to Political Buzz. John DeSciullo here on WBBZ-TV. And as we get together to record our program, 17% of the government, that's the statistic I read, continues to be shut down. Like this state park that does not have government rangers to patrol it and keep it functioning, or the National Weather Service that is updating their website and operating with the fewest forecasters possible. Locally, the Buffalo News reports that about 1,000 workers have been hit here at home. Why the shutdown a few weeks ago? Well, the divide over Obamacare or the Affordable Health Care Act. House Republicans debated strategies on how to deal with deadlines, which ended up splitting the party in two. We'll talk about that. The New Yorker reports that leader John Boehner favored a merely symbolic fight, followed by a quick passage of the resolution to fund the government with a battle over the debt ceiling. But that's when Senator Ted Cruz and Tea Party conservatives took over. They thought Boehner's strategy was designed maybe to be more of a show. Cruz pulled an overnight marathon session on the floor, and things changed completely with a credible threat of a government shutdown, which has now happened. The House never did get to vote on measures that would have impacted the president's health care plan, which is still at the center of this storm. So here we are with the next big date on the calendar being Thursday, October 17th, when the debt ceiling will likely be voted on to raise the government's legal borrowing limit. Here to sort all this out from the Beltway to Buffalo are two former chairs of their respective parties. Former Erie County Democratic Chair Steve Pidgeon, also an attorney for Underberg and Kessler and regular contributor here to Political Buzz, and former Erie County Republican Chair Bob Davis, political analyst on local television and president of the Partnership Advertising Agency. All right, did I set the stage accurately? Because I tried to condense it to the average viewer who may be wondering what this is all about, including the debt ceiling. But it feels like a game of political chicken, Steve.
Well, I think it's more than a game of political chicken. And I think what's happened is you have one faction of one party, you have one side of one branch of government out of three. So you have basically the Tea Party faction in the Republican conference. Seems to be in control even of its own leadership. It seems to have grabbed leadership. Even one of their members even said, talk to Cruz, that a senator has come in and they're wagging the dog. And what they're trying to achieve, I think it's larger than the issue of Obamacare. This started with they wanted to stop Obamacare from being implemented. They aren't able to win the votes in the Congress, in both houses. They don't control the executive branch. The judicial branch has already litigated that, yes, it's constitutional. So not being able to win through the regular route of government, the regular order of business, what they're in effect doing is holding hostages, saying if we don't get our way on Obamacare, stopping it, delaying it, changing it, but whatever they want to do, not through the regular process of government, we're going to close down the government and we're not going to vote to pay the bills of our country. Because when you talk about the debt ceiling, all the debt ceiling is allowing bills that have already been voted on, already been appropriated, money that's already been spent to allow it to be paid. This is a dangerous way to govern. It goes against what I believe that the basis of our government is in a representative democracy, which is you need to pass bills, you need to pass both houses of Congress, you need to get a president to sign it, you need to be able to get judicial a muster if anyone has questions as to whether it's constitutional. Those things were done in this policy. We saw this happen last year, where a negotiation was tried by the president, where they tried to get this grand bargain. Boehner wanted to make the speaker wanted to make the grand bargain, and wasn't able to get the votes. What we have is, I think, a dangerous creeping upon our ability to govern. And what that's going to do is question our credibility around the world. It could hurt our economy, put us back into a recession. It could hurt our standing in the world in terms of being the global economic power and even the global military power that we are. How embarrassing when a president can't make a trip to Asia where he's supposed to be meeting with Asian nations, and China comes in as the big power at that resource. These are direct results of, I think, the Republican leadership not being able to control its backbenchers, trying to win through intimidation, hostage taking, in a way that our government should not be set up for. Let's turn it around if this continues. In the past, when they've had these shutdowns or they've had debt ceiling issues, it's been over the budget. It's been over a number in the budget. So in other words, the government closes down while Gingrich and Clinton are trying to figure out what the number is going to be of how much we're going to spend. Or it's been shut down over the credit, full faith and credit, in terms of saying we need deficit reduction, we need a long-term plan for that. I think around the margins that's acceptable. That's not what's happening here. It's not about a budget number. In fact, Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi agreed to Boehner's number. We're willing to give him his number to continue the budget. Still didn't bring them to the table. It's about a policy change. So it'd be no different than the Democrats saying, next time there's a Republican president, the Democrats have the Congress, we want gun control. We don't have the votes to get gun control, so we're going to shut the government down, and we're not going to pay its bills, and we're going to risk a full faith and credit disaster around the world because we want gun control and it's that important to us. It's not the way we should govern. I think this is very dangerous. I think it's bigger than the issues. It's now about the way we govern in this country, and I think the president cannot, just like you cannot start negotiating with terrorists, the president cannot negotiate on this. He has to win this issue.
Bob, what happened with the Republican Party based on what Steve said and based on what I've read with Boehner, and then this Cruz coming out of nowhere and the Tea Party sort of superseding some sensibility?
What you've got, Speaker Boehner needs 217 votes to pass anything in the House. And you've got 30 to 40 Tea Party conservative Republicans. And Boehner needs some of them to get to 217. He can't get there without them. And so that's what's happened in the House. And Boehner's been back in the corner to some extent. And he can't muster the votes necessary to raise the debt ceiling. And, there's some issues about whether we should be raising the debt ceiling. But, that's a Republican position, if you will. But, to Steve's point, he made a number of very good points. I mean, to hold the government hostage is not the way to govern. And you've got 30 to 40 members of the House that have effectively shut this government down.
Well, now you're looking at this debt ceiling. Explain a little bit about the debt ceiling, because it's really about the borrowing limits that we have, and I'm to understand raising those borrowing limits.
Right. They're talking about raising the debt ceiling to pay the bills that, as Steve indicated, have already been appropriated. My concern is if October 17th is in fact the magic date. I read a story this morning that said it could be November the 1st. The story said one of the Republican members of the Senate said, with the people that have been laid off, it's saving, and I'm not sure I agree with the numbers, saving the government $24 billion a month out of the $35 billion that the government would spend. So he said they could prolong a crisis, if you will. But I think the other thing to look at is what's going to happen on Wall Street if, in fact, this,
well, the stocks
October
are taking
7th,
a hit.
See, that's the bigger point, Bob, because
the economy.
Because if they're saving money from a closure, or maybe you could pay a couple more of the government's bills. But what you've still done is you shut down the government, and you're questioning the full faith and credit in the country. And what does that mean? Right now, the best investment in the world, seen around the world, is in treasury bonds of the U.S. government. That's why most economies are based on the dollar across the world. Our trading partners, whether it be Latin America, Asia, Europe, Eastern Europe, they depend on the American economy as the base. And the one place where you can put investment dollars, if we don't pay those bondholders, people are going to question our economy and whether we're a good investment. That money can be pulled out, interest rates go up, credit goes down. You could be a small business, you could be a farmer, you could be a consumer with your credit card, your interest rates will go up. This could be catastrophic for the economy. And they're playing this game that they're trying to win a policy that they can't win otherwise by threatening this. It's crazy.
And the worst is happening around.
And it's crazy. And even if they can keep it going October 17th, November 1st, once Wall Street, who doesn't believe it can really happen, because they know how crazy it is, they can't believe it can really happen, that the government won't come together. Once they think it could happen, you see that stock market continue to go down. You see investment dry up. This has catastrophic chances for this country, putting us back into even a worse recession than 2008. So my point is, we have to stop. We have to look at the deeper reasons for this happening. Yes, I understand that we have a long-term deficit problem in this country. Now, we've cut the deficit in half this last year, from $1.2 trillion to $600 million. Long-term deficit, we have to address entitlements.
Sure do.
Obama was willing to come to the table on that. We have to address our place in the world and how much we're going to spend everywhere. But it has to be done in a long-term way. It can't be done with the threat of, we're just going to create an economic catastrophe if you don't agree to our side of what we need to do to solve this deficit. So the president's saying, look, I'll come to the table the minute we get the government going and we do this credit limit. And yes, everything's on the table. We have to do long-term entitlement reduction. We have to think about the next 20 years. We can't continue to spend as much as we are taking in with what we are. There has to be long-term deficit reduction, economic planning, investment in growth, in infrastructure, education, because there's nothing that beats a deficit better than economic growth, and we've seen that in the past.
Steve,
so we need to negotiate between Democrats and Republicans on how to do it,
right,
but not with a gun to our head, and that's what the president's saying.
And we'll talk. Steve's on fire, by the way, here today. We're going to talk more about this, why both sides can't seem to come to the table. When we go to break, some websites that you need to see if you have some information about the government shutdown. And we'll talk about just what the government is shutting down when we come back right after this.